Welcome back, Top 5 Gamers. It is I, your boy, back again, where today we will be ranking the specialty items and weapons in Fortnite. Now, when I say specialty, I'm talking out of the ordinary. Things that you don't usually see in Fortnite. Things like aliens or talking llamas? No, actually, not at all. I was thinking more of the lines of toilet plungers? Okay, no, I mean, well, all right, Fred. I don't need to explain myself here, but use code T5G in the item shop or else your Minecraft server will get griefed by a very large creeper. Now that you're here, you may as well join the Discord server linked in the description below because there's tons of neat stuff on there. Like memes. I like memes. Shut up, Fred, okay? Number 5. The Infinity Blade. Now, the Infinity Blade was Fortnite's first attempt to introduce mythic-style weapons to Battle Royale. They wanted to add another grade above the current legendary limit. Their intentions were to provide the game with a unique style weapon that mixes up the gameplay from the standard encounters that we've all gotten so used to. They introduced the Infinity Blade shortly after the Season 7 update. We had the entire bottom left corner of the map covered in snow and ice. And I'm fairly certain that 90% of the community realized that we would be seeing something more to the Polar Peaks mountain. It was just a giant ice cube ready to melt and reveal to us its treasures within. Sure enough, the first layer of ice melted away and the courtyard area of Polar Peaks surfaced with the Infinity Blade at its center. It was stuck in the ground exactly like you might hear from a classic King Arthur story, with the sword stuck in a rock and ready to be pulled out by the one who was worthy. In this case, the person who was worthy was just a player who could land and pull it out of the ground quick enough before getting pickaxed to death by those landing a little later. Successfully pull it out of the ground though, and you were pretty much laughing. You would instantly be given 200 health and 200 shield, a massive amount of HP that enemies would need to rinse through in order to eliminate you, but that was fairly difficult even though it was a close range weapon. The Infinity Blade had the ability to launch you through the sky in a giant lunge-like attack that would knock back enemies and cause 25 damage. Doesn't sound like much, but that's where you add in your standard attack. Swinging your sword back and forth, causing 75 damage a hit is going to put pretty much anyone down for the count. Maybe you're thinking you could just block the sword-wielding demon with some builds. Nope, the sword completely demolishes builds in one easy swing. On top of all of this though, you were able to move slightly faster than the players and would regenerate health over time as well as getting a bonus 50 health per kill. When Fortnite said they were trying to mix up the game, I'm not sure the Infinity Blade gave them the desired results. High kill games were easy for even the newbiest of us out there because it was just so powerful with minimal ways to counter it. At the time the Infinity Blade was out, the only real counter to it would have been to use some balloons and simply stay in the air straight above people to avoid that blade because obviously you can't jump that high, slowly picking away their health from above, which often left them to just run away until you were forced to face them in the final circles. Overall, this weapon didn't exactly go down well, but as you'll see later on, sometimes things just need to be introduced in a better way, and I think that this is one of those cases where if it was just an LTM, I don't think anybody would have had a problem with it. It would have just been another fun Thanos-type game mode. Number 4 is the Shadow Stones. Every season brings us something new. I mean, just look at Season 8 and all the goodies we've gotten. However, sometimes those new features or items don't always go particularly smoothly. Probably the worst item to be introduced with a new season was the Shadow Stones, and not because they were particularly bad as an item, it's simply because we barely got to use them in the first couple of weeks of the season. They were intended to be an item that could temporarily run you into shadow form, an almost invisible-like state that was only visible due to a dark purple smoke that would increase. Now, this smoke would only really give away your position if you were running around, as the smoke would be more intense and leave a trail behind you. You're standing still though, the shadow smoke settles down and it's barely visible unless you know what you're looking for. You could even be extra tricky and stand behind one of the pink geysers or on another shadow stone to blend in your purple smoke with the natural scenery. Now, this effect was only temporary, but it had an extra ability that you could use to your advantage during that short window. Phasing. While in shadow form, you could phase through any destructible structure on the map. Just simply pass right through it like an actual ghost. This was obviously super useful as you could sneak into enemy bases, but at the same time, that phasing ability did let off quite a bit of noise, which could end getting yourself put into a trap type scenario if the players were smart enough. The phasing ability was a bit like a jump, but you didn't need to be on the ground. In fact, at the time we had to redeploy, and a common tactic for players would be to use a shadow stone and then jump into the pink geysers. As it launches you up into the air, you can keep phasing directly upwards until it eventually runs out and you're not at the top of the map ready to redeploy to whatever location you please. In all honesty, I probably did more traveling with shadow stones than I did attacking. However, keep in mind, this is after after Fortnite got them working properly. In the first few weeks of the season, we barely saw them. Day 1 of the season, and they get removed, brought back a few hours later to be removed once again the same day, and then returned the next day to get removed for almost a week. They caused a lot of glitches like being able to stay invisible while using guns and building, and these Shadow Stones were in and out of the game for fixes more times than Ninja has kills. Okay, that might be a bit of an exaggeration because Ninja has, well, he's got more kills than you. I can tell you that much. Number 3 is going to be Jetpacks. This is something pretty much every player will look forward to using no matter what game it is you're playing. I mean, who can't resist the ability to fly through skies with insane mobility while raining down bullets on the unsuspecting enemies below? Introduced slightly after the Season 4 release, we got Jetpacks added on the 22nd of May. And like most new fancy items, the whole community was having a blast testing out this new jetpack. It comes as an actual item that takes up one of your inventory slots and has a limited fuel gauge that can't be replenished unless finding a new jetpack. When activated, it'll only allow you to fly for a short time before the jetpack needs to essentially recharge, which in all honesty made for some pretty funny situations, if you know what I'm talking about. You can often find players who weren't that adept at using it, not focusing on when their jetpack was about to run out and would be left falling to the deck. On the other hand, if you got good at timing with this jetpack and its fuel meter, it became a game changer. I mean, you didn't need to worry so much about wasting material if you could just jetpack above your opponent's builds. Skybases made a comeback at the time due to not having to worry about fall damage, which is a lot of fun. You guys remember Skybase? Throwback. Holy moly. There were quite a few issues and glitches from this item, and not just when the jetpack was first introduced, but all throughout its history in Fortnite. The fact is that Epic Games realized the current jetpack wasn't a right fit for the Battle Royale environment, especially competitively. They removed it and brought it back in certain LTMs like the high explosives or close encounters. Even then though, this jetpack was super glitchy, often causing permanent jetpack noises to be emitted for the entire game, which made hearing other enemies near impossible while also letting them know exactly where you are. We're not quite sure what their plans are with the jetpack because it wasn't exactly limited to a storyline or season like the Shadow Stones. I mean, for all we know, they could be coming back out soon. I mean, let's just hope that they balance them out more. Although when it comes to Fortnite, it's hard to say what's balanced anymore. But in at number 2, we've got the Zapper Tron. Now, this weapon in particular has haunted my dreams since it was first taken away from us. And if you don't know about the Zapper Tron, then it's fairly understandable. Let me quickly explain why. When Fortnite dropped late September 2017, this gun was actually in the game. Just so happened that Fortnite removed it after barely a day. Initially, the Zapper Tron could be found in supplies drops with a small 5% chance to get it, which is why the internet seems to only have one clip on this insanely rare gun. But why remove a special weapon within the game a day after release? Well, apparently Fortnite didn't feel like it fit the style of the game. And in all honesty, this does make a lot of sense. In the first few seasons, we only really had standard style weapons that you could find in the real world. Your normal metal guns with metal bullets, etc. You get the point. You get it. So it does make sense that they wanted to remove the one gun in the game that completely avoided that norm. After all, the Zapper Tron, like its name suggests, is an energy-based weapon that uses electricity. It was also the only gun in the game that had alternative shooting styles. You could press the trigger normally to release a 3-round burst that causes 50 damage each, or alternatively, you could hold down the trigger to charge up one powerful sniper shot that would do 150 damage. Yep, this gun was basically a sniper rifle and a 3-round burst assault rifle at the same time. Now, remember when I said this gun haunts my dreams? Well, it's because of that air of mystery surrounding the weapon. What was it actually like? How powerful was it in battle? And will we ever see it again? I'm just saying, Epic Games, if you want to introduce mythic-style weapons to Fortnite, bringing back the Zapper Tron might just be a pretty good shout. Or whisper ASMR. As for the honorable mentions, we've got the Grappler. Now, the Grappler itself isn't the most special of items. It's not particularly big or having massive shooting effects or special abilities, but come on, it's a freaking grappling hook made of a toilet plunger. Just like Jetpacks, grappling devices are something we always get pleasantly surprised to see in a game we're playing. Being able to become the human spider as you launch your way through trees and buildings, I'm fairly sure most of us looked forward to. So when they introduced it early September last year, a lot of the community went wild as can be, which is pretty normal for Fortnite. Testing out its limit and mechanics was first. Second was using them to pull off some fancy and stylish moves on your opponent. And in all honesty, there weren't too many issues with the Grappler. The only real problems that we had during the beginning that was sort of frequent was grappling onto a moving target and suddenly being propelled across the entire map, and most of the time to your death in the waters surrounding the island. This actually resulted in Fortnite having to introduce an entire new momentum functionality to the Grapplers in order to prevent this from happening. All settled down for a little while, and then people suddenly found that they were getting trapped in the sky when trying to grapple multiple supply drops. After Fortnite patched that small issue, the Grappler has been clean ever since, no real problems. And for an item that allows insane travel speed and maneuverability, there wasn't much controversy over the Grappler. It was pretty well balanced and only had 10 hooks before it would run out, making it insanely useful, but for only a short time. And it was an item that was powerful, but only when used smartly. Shortly after the Season 7 release, though, we saw the Grapplers get vaulted, and like most vaulted items, can only be enjoyed in creative and playground modes. And in at number 1, we've got the Infinity Gauntlet. So the Infinity Gauntlet will most likely go down as one of the best special weapons in Fortnite history for most of the community. This Epic Games and Marvel collaboration created a limited time mode that was, dare I say, near perfect. As you fly over the map, ready to pick your landing location, the Infinity Gauntlet would spawn in somewhere randomly on the map. And it was essentially first person to get there would get it. Pick up the glove and you'll instantly be teleported to the top of the map, transformed into Thanos to come falling straight back down into every other player that tried to get the gauntlet before you'd failed. So what could you do as Thanos? Well, for one, you could perform a charge jump. This jump took a second or two to perform, which left you a little exposed, but would result in you bounding high up into the sky. You also had a laser move that could only be fired by staying still, again, leaving you slightly exposed. Then, the final ability was Thanos' punch. You could perform this on the ground to create a punch combo effect that annihilates opponents, or you could perform the punch in midair to perform a ground pound on your targeted area. Now, in terms of ability, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. It's actually insanely similar to the Infinity Sword. However, there's one key difference. The Infinity Sword's downfall was being introduced in normal Battle Royale mode, whereas the Thanos event was its own separate LTM that allowed all players to enjoy it when they pleased. Not when you're trying to just enjoy a normal game with your buddies and you get rampaged by a sword-wielding maniac, and that maniac may or may not have been me. But this small difference in the way Fortnite introduced these items led to very different results. There's still a little part of me that hopes the Thanos event comes back one day, and I'm a little surprised it hasn't already, you know? Thanos, he's got a nice butt. That's I mean, that's true, but like the LTM was massive and would still boost Fortnite if they released it today. However, the lack of discussion on subject leads us to believe that the LTM was probably a one-time event that was made sure of in their contract with Marvel. But here's to hoping. But that has been our list of the top 5 Fortnite special weapons and items ranked from worst to best. Use code T5G in the item shop. Check out the Discord. Link is in the description. We gotta love you and leave you, and we want you and need you. And keep it here on Top 5 Gaming. Or don't. We'll be sad.